What if the fundamental assumption guiding our entire economic system, the idea of scarcity, what if it's actually, well, based on a lie? A manipulation, even.
It's a pretty provocative way to kick things off, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, for decades, maybe centuries, we've built our societies, our policies, our whole understanding of human behavior, really, on this bedrock belief that there's simply not enough to go around.
Right. That competition for limited resources is just the natural state of things.
Exactly. But what if that's fundamentally wrong? Today on The Deep Dive, we're taking a truly transformative look into a stack of, well, fascinating sources that don't just challenge this notion.
No, they go much further. They propose a radically optimistic future for humanity. It's quite something.
So let's set the stage. What's our mission here today?
Absolutely. Our mission today is to really unpack these sources. We want to reveal how monumental technological advancements aren't just promising an era of abundance. They're actively ushering it in right now.
Ushering in abundance. Okay.
Yeah. We're going to systematically, try and dismantle the very idea of limited resources and maybe paint a picture of a future where universal well-being isn't just some abstract, far-off dream.
Like some kind of utopia.
Exactly. But something deeply feasible, an attainable reality, right here on our planet. We'll be digging into groundbreaking concepts like the zero marginal cost economy.
Okay, I've heard a bit about that. Sounds intriguing.
It is. And also a visionary framework for universal well-being known as Prout Samaj.
Prout Samaj, right.
So yeah, this is going to be an exciting intellectual journey, I think. One that will hopefully make you, our listener, rethink maybe everything you thought you knew about how our world could actually function.
Okay, let's unpack this whole scarcity thing first, because we've all been taught from day one, haven't we, that economics, by its very nature, is about managing limitations.
It's Econ 101, basically.
Right. If you look up the definition of economics, find it on Investopedia or wherever, it's defined something like a social science that focuses on the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. Okay, standard enough.
Mm-hmm.
The study of economics is primarily concerned with analyzing the choices that individuals, businesses, governments, and nations make to allocate limited resources.
There it is.
Did you catch that critical word? Limited. It's right there, embedded at the absolute core of the definition.
It's the cornerstone.
It's the inherent assumption of scarcity, isn't it? A fundamental constraint that supposedly shapes every single economic decision we make. It's literally the starting point for every economic model, every policy, every business plan out there.
And that's precisely where the sources we've been looking at deliver their first, maybe most jarring punch.
Mm-hmm.
What's truly fascinating here, and a bit unsettling maybe, is that if this core assumption, this idea that resources are inherently limited, if that's no longer true in the world we actually live in.
That is what these sources are arguing.
Exactly. Then almost everything that current economic theory tells us might be completely wrong.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, think about it. If the very foundation of an entire discipline is flawed, then the whole edifice built upon it starts to look pretty shaky, doesn't it?
It really does. The implications are huge.
Our sources really push this point hard. They suggest this idea of scarcity isn't just some, benign illusion or a simple misunderstanding. It might be something far worse, a deliberate manipulation.
A manipulation, that's a strong claim.
It is. But think, if we're operating under this deeply ingrained belief that resources are scarce when they are, in fact, abundant, well, that fundamentally warps every aspect of our society.
How so?
Well, it distorts our policy decisions, for starters. It influences how businesses behave, dictates where wealth accumulates, and shapes the very societal structures we build. Education, healthcare, housing, everything.
It's like you're trying to build a house on quicksand.
Exactly. No matter how well-designed your blueprints are, if the foundation is unstable, the whole thing's destined for trouble. And this is an abstract theory. This directly impacts your access, the listener's access, to things like affordable housing, quality healthcare, even basic food.
Not because the resources don't exist.
Correct. But because the system is designed, maybe deliberately, to treat them as scarce, to ration them.
Okay, so if that fundamental scarcity assumption is built on such shaky ground, it really begs the question, what happens when we look at the world through a different lens? What do we actually have in abundance?
Right. Let's flip the script.
Because here's where it gets really interesting, I think. What if, in fact, most resources are not limited? What if we already have enough? Let's start with something as fundamental as food security.
Okay. Good place to start.
Our sources highlight something pretty stark here. that there is, unequivocally, enough food produced to feed everyone on this planet right now, today.
Enough calories, enough nutrients, it exists.
But there's a huge caveat, isn't there?
There is, the sources say, unless governments decide to deny it to people.
Wow.
And we know this is plausible, they argue, because roughly 8 billion people are being fed on this planet every single day, except in places where governments or other powerful entities have deliberately chosen to create food shortages.
Often for political reasons or economic leverage.
Precisely. It's like being invited to this massive global feast, right? Imagine tables overflowing with every kind of dish imaginable.
Okay.
But some guests are intentionally held back. They're kept away from the tables, not because the food isn't there or because there aren't enough chefs.
But because someone somewhere has decided they shouldn't have access to it.
Exactly. And that's before we even get into the staggering amount of food waste we see globally, which just further underscores that the problem isn't primarily one of production capacity. It's about distribution, access, and, frankly, political will.
It's a systems problem, not a resource problem.
That seems to be the argument, yeah.
And this isn't just about food, is it? The sources suggest the same principle applies powerfully to housing.
It does. Globally, the source observes that around the world, almost everybody is housed in some form or another. But then you zoom in on specific, supposedly highly developed nations, like the UK.
Right, there was a specific example there.
Yeah. The sources point out there is demonstrably enough land in the UK for everyone to have somewhere decent to live, and certainly enough skilled builders to construct those homes.
So the capacity is there. Land, labor.
Absolutely. In fact, they mentioned that when the UK government set an ambitious target a while back to build, I think it was 500,000 houses a year, the builders were available, the materials could be sourced, often using innovative, sustainable methods even.
So why isn't it happening? Why the housing crisis?
Well, the sources argue the problem isn't a lack of brick or mortar or human skill. It's control.
Control of the land.
Primarily, yes. Those who control the land, and a vast majority of it is owned by a very small number of individuals or corporations, they're restricting access to it. They hoard land, basically.
Which drives up prices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By limiting the supply, they artificially inflate prices because it serves their financial interests. Our source puts it bluntly. We've decided to prioritize house prices over the need for housing.
That's quite a statement, a societal choice.
It's presented as a profound societal choice, yes. And it leaves millions struggling to find affordable, decent housing, not because the potential isn't there, but because the system prioritizes financial return over fundamental human need.
And this pattern, it extends beyond food and housing.
Oh, definitely. The sources argue it applies to other universal basic necessities, too. We absolutely have that capacity to clothe people and to do it ethically and sustainably if we chose to.
Right. Fast fashion versus sustainable models.
Precisely. We can educate them not just adequately, but with world-class quality, as we'll touch on later. And in a great many cases, we can provide everybody with comprehensive health care.
Though the source does add a caveat there, although not always adequate.
True. It acknowledges current failings.
Yeah.
But it could be if we wanted to be. Again, it comes back to priorities, to choice. Are we prioritizing universal well-being or profit and other interests?
And energy. That feels particularly crucial right now.
Hugely crucial. And here the sources are really emphatic. Perhaps most particularly important now is that there is enough renewable energy in the world for everyone to have access to it.
Enough renewables for everyone.
The potential is staggering. We're talking solar, wind, tidal, hydrothermal. The energy is constantly being replenished by nature itself. It's virtually limitless.
So the bottleneck isn't the source of energy itself?
Not the ultimate source, no.
Oh.
It's about harvesting it, storing it, distributing it efficiently. But the sources argue the potential is there to provide clean, abundant energy for all. This isn't some distant dream. It's presented as a present reality, something that's already transforming our energy landscape.
And offering the promise of, what, democratized energy? Less reliance on fossil fuels and geopolitics?
Exactly. Truly democratized energy access, free from the control of centralized monopolies and the volatility tied to fossil fuels. It's a massive potential shift.
Okay, so if we connect all these dots, food, housing, clothing, education, healthcare, energy, if there's potentially enough of all these fundamental things.
It raises that crucial, almost infuriating question, doesn't it?
Why do people go without? If there's clearly enough, why the deprivation, the struggle?
And the sources lay it bare. Their argument is access is denied. And it's denied most effectively by markets as they currently operate.
So it's not a flaw in the market system, it's by design.
That's the provocative claim from these sources, yes. That markets are, to use their term, rigged. They don't just facilitate exchange. They argue that markets deliberately manufacture scarcity.
How do they manufacture scarcity?
By restricting supplies, by creating artificial bottlenecks, by inflating prices way beyond the actual cost of production, and ultimately by extracting disproportionate profits from basic human needs.
And this isn't accidental. It's not just market dynamics playing out.
The sources strongly suggest this isn't by chance, this is deliberate. It's driven, they argue, by those who seek to accumulate immense wealth. They realize that the easiest, most direct way to become wealthy isn't necessarily through genuine innovation or supplying better products more abundantly.
It's easier to just limit the supply.
Often, yes. It's far simpler and more lucrative to just restrict supply, control access, and thus maximize profits from existing resources or needs, less risk, more reward for those in control.
And this next point, related to healthcare. This really blew my mind when I read it in our sources. It's almost too shocking to accept.
Which part? The medicine market.
Yeah. The idea that we could eliminate the vast majority of diseases that cause death and suffering in our world, but we actively choose not to, it sounds almost unthinkable, like a moral catastrophe.
It does sound unthinkable. But when you examine the profit motive embedded within the current market structure, particularly in pharmaceuticals, the logic, however grim, becomes starkly clear according to these sources.
What's the logic?
Pharmaceutical companies, the sources argue, often have a much stronger financial incentive to manage illnesses rather than cure them.
Manage, not cure. Why?
Think about it. Managing an illness for decades, a daily pill for a chronic condition like diabetes or heart disease, maybe ongoing treatments for autoimmune disorders that represents a continuous revenue stream. It's infinitely more profitable
than discovering and distributing a one-time permanent cure.
Exactly. A cured patient is essentially a lost customer. So the argument goes, the industry effectively manufactures scarcity for cures to maximize their profit from treatments.
That's deeply cynical.
It is. And the sources suggest this isn't just an occasional occurrence. It's a deliberate, systemic strategy driven by the profit imperative. It forces us to confront a really fundamental ethical dilemma, doesn't it?
Yeah. What is the true purpose of these multi-billion-dollar industries?
Is it genuinely to eradicate suffering and disease? Or is it primarily to maximize shareholder returns, even if that means perpetuating illness and maintaining chronic conditions for potentially half a person's lifetime?
It really challenges our basic assumptions about healthcare and innovation.
It shows just how deeply ingrained this scarcity mindset is, even when the potential for abundance, in this case, abundance of health, of life itself, is technically within our grasp.
Okay, so if scarcity is a manufactured illusion, if it's a choice we're making, what kind of world could we actually be moving into? What's the alternative future these sources point towards?
Well, this is where it gets really exciting, I think.
Yeah.
Our sources introduce a concept that really turbocharges this whole idea of abundance. It's called the zero marginal cost economy.
Zero marginal cost, ZMC. Okay, break that down for us.
Put simply, zero marginal cost describes a situation where once you've made the initial investment to create something, producing additional units of that good or service costs virtually nothing extra.
So the cost of making one more is almost zero.
Precisely. Think about the cost of producing the first copy of a software program versus the cost of letting one more person download it, or the cost of recording a song versus streaming it one more time.
Right. The cost is all upfront. In creation, the replication is essentially free.
Exactly. It's the fundamental difference between, say, building a single custom car, which requires materials and labor for each one, and replicating a digital music file, which is just data transfer.
Okay, I get the basic idea, but how revolutionary is this, really?
Well, the concept itself isn't entirely new to economists, but its implications are only now being fully grasped as technology accelerates, particularly digital technology. Jeremy Rifkin, the author, explored this extensively in his, well, pretty seminal 2014 book, The Zero Marginal Cost Society.
Right, you mentioned it earlier.
Yeah. And Rifkin makes this really powerful argument. He says that the very thing we've always seen is the engine of capitalism, that inherent entrepreneurial dynamism, the constant drive for competition and efficiency.
The drive to produce more for less.
Exactly. That very drive relentlessly pushes productivity up and, crucially, drives marginal costs down towards zero.
Okay.
And this paradoxically leads to capitalism's own eclipse, as he puts it.
Its own eclipse.
Because when goods or services reach a certain critical mass of efficiency and automation, they become nearly free and abundant and no longer subject to market forces. If something costs almost nothing to produce and distribute, how do you price it? How does a market based on price signals even function?
Good question.
What's truly astonishing, as Rifkin points out, is that traditional economists, for the most part, never anticipated the possibility of a technological revolution that might bring marginal costs to near zero, making goods and services priceless, or at least priced outside the traditional market mechanism.
It's like a fundamental contradiction baked into the system itself.
Exactly. Capitalism's own success in driving efficiency ultimately undermines its core function, which relies on price signals derived from scarcity or at least non-zero marginal cost.
And we've already seen this play out pretty dramatically, haven't we? Especially in the digital world.
Oh, absolutely. The near-zero marginal cost phenomenon has profoundly disrupted entire information goods industries over the past decade or two. It's turned sector after sector completely upside down.
You see it everywhere. I mean, think about music.
Definitely. Millions of consumers have transformed into what the sources call prosumers, people who both consume and produce, collaborating on projects online, releasing creations globally almost instantly. The same goes for video. Think about the sheer volume of content uploaded to YouTube every minute, available for anyone to watch.
Or Wikipedia. Collective knowledge built and shared for virtually free.
Perfect example. Or news on social media. Ebooks disrupting traditional publishing. Once you've produced that first digital song or video or article or ebook, sharing it with 1 million, 10 million, 100 million people costs virtually nothing beyond the initial creation cost and the basic infrastructure.
And education, too. You mentioned MOOCs.
Yes, massively open online courses. They operate at near zero marginal cost. You have some of the most distinguished professors in the world from top universities conducting these courses.
And millions of students are taking them.
Our sources cite 6 million students currently enrolled in MOOCs, often for free, or maybe for a very small fee if they want formal verification. It's a revolution in access to knowledge.
So this ZMC principle, it's already had a huge impact.
Huge. The sources state it brought the music industry to its knees, shook the film and television industries, forced newspapers and magazines out of business, crippled the book publishing market, and forced universities to fundamentally rethink their business model.
And you mentioned Radio Pray Pat earlier.
Yeah, just as a small specific example, providing spiritual chants, Kirtan, 247 via the Zeno app, that's only possible because of the zero marginal cost economy. Distributing that audio stream globally costs next to nothing per listener once it's set up.
It's like if everything physical followed the path of digital music once you've produced the first song, sharing it with 1 million people costs virtually nothing.
That's a great analogy. And for a long time, that was the perceived barrier.
The firewall, as the sources call it.
Exactly. There was this idea that the exponential productivity gains we saw in the digital economy wouldn't fully cross over into the physical world. You know, things like energy, transportation, manufacturing, tangible goods.
Yeah.
There are real material costs there, right?
Yep. You can't just copy-paste a car.
Not yet, perhaps. But our sources argue that this firewall is rapidly dissolving. It's becoming porous.
How? What's breaking it down?
2 main drivers, really, working together. The new Internet of Things, or IoT, and the incredible power of artificial intelligence, AI.
Okay, explain how they connect to ZMC in the physical world.
Well, AI is driving automation and robotics at an unprecedented scale. This isn't just about replacing human labor. It's about enabling exponential productivity growth in physical processes.
Making things much, much more efficiently.
Incredibly efficiently. This pushes down the production costs dramatically, and it also significantly reduces the expenses associated with a human workforce for certain tasks, not necessarily to eliminate jobs entirely, but to free people from dangerous, repetitive, or mundane labor.
And this allows, just big companies.
Not just big companies, that's the key. It allows millions of individuals, small businesses, cooperatives, those prosumers, again, to engage in revolutionary activities that extend the zero marginal cost phenomenon deep into the physical world.
Okay, that's fascinating. Give us some examples. What are these real-world applications we're seeing or that are on the horizon?
Okay, well, take energy, which we talked about earlier. We're moving towards a world where millions of these prosumers can generate their own power. Solar panels on the roof, small wind turbines, maybe community geothermal systems.
Right, distributed generation.
Exactly. And they can store it increasingly efficiently with better batteries, and distribute it on a digital energy internet. These distributed sources generate energy at near zero marginal cost once the initial setup is paid for. The fuel sun, wind is free.
So the cost of the energy itself becomes virtually free over time.
Pretty much, yeah. Then think about transportation. We're already seeing shared vehicles, ride-hailing becoming commonplace. Add in automated GPS-guided systems, Google Maps made navigation free, right?
Yeah.
Now layer on fully driverless transportation and logistics internets, which companies like Waymo are pioneering. Combine that with the exponential increase in battery storage capacity, making electric vehicles super efficient.
And the cost of moving people and goods plummets.
Exactly. Rendering transport itself to near zero cost per mile eventually. Imagine the implications. Less traffic, lower pollution, universal access to mobility regardless of ability to own a car.
Okay, energy transport. What about manufacturing, making actual stuff?
That's being transformed too. We're seeing the rise of advanced 3D printing, additive manufacturing, and localized microfactories. These technologies allow us to manufacture an increasing array of 3D printed physical products and other goods and services at, the sources say, meager marginal cost in the traditional market.
Or even cheaper outside the market.
Or near zero marginal cost in the sharing economy. Imagine needing a specific replacement part for an appliance, instead of ordering it from halfway across the world with all the shipping and markup.
You print it locally.
It's 3D printed, maybe at a local community hub or library, custom to your exact specifications, using recycled materials perhaps, at negligible marginal cost. This is already starting to transform supply chains and boost local production capabilities.
Wow. So this really isn't just theory then. It's already happening, it's accelerating, and it's set to revolutionize practically everything. How we learn, how we get medical care, how we eat, how we move around, how we build things, how we interact.
It's incredibly far-reaching.
It's truly incredible to think about the breadth and the speed of this potential impact.
Indeed. And it all kind of boils down to a core three-step process that our sources identify as defining this new economy.
Okay, what's the process?
It's digitized, demonetized, and democratized.
Digitized, demonetized, democratized.
Let's take an example. Imagine the very best biology class video you can find anywhere in the world, taught by a Nobel laureate maybe.
Yeah.
First, it's digitized, turned into a digital file. Simple enough.
Right.
Then, it's distributed online. This makes it demonetized. The traditional costs associated with delivering that lecture, the physical classroom, the professor's repeated time, expensive textbooks, maybe those person-to-person contact costs are reduced essentially to zero for each additional student.
Okay, got it.
And finally, because it's digital and online, it can be consumed by a potentially infinite number of students anywhere across the globe. That makes it democratized, instantly accessible to everyone, regardless of their location or their economic status, assuming they have basic internet access.
Digitized, demonetized, democratized, that makes sense.
And we saw this process accelerate dramatically post-COVID, didn't we? Remember all those expensive, geographically exclusive conferences?
Yes, suddenly they were all online.
Exactly. They were swiftly digitized onto platforms like Zoom or Teams. They were effectively demonetized by cutting out massive travel costs, venue rentals, accommodation. All that disappeared.
And way more people could attend.
Totally democratized. Instantly accessible to anyone with a smartphone and an internet connection anywhere in the world. It's that same powerful trio, digitized, demonetized, democratized, at play.
And the sources suggest this goes beyond information.
They boldly speculate that pretty much all activities that have a definable cognitive pattern, meaning processes where decision-making and actions can be systematized, learned by AI, and automated, could follow this path.
Including things like surgery.
Including potentially even highly critical robotic surgeries. Imagine expert AI systems guiding robotic instruments, making the highest level of surgical skill accessible and affordable worldwide, achieving near zero marginal cost dispensation for that expertise.
That's a mind-bending possibility.
It is. It shows the sheer transformative potential we're talking about.
Okay, so if technology, through the ZMC effect, is driving us relentlessly towards this potential age of abundance, how do we actually structure a society to embrace it? How do we make sure it benefits everyone rather than just, fighting it with outdated ideas about scarcity and maximizing profit?
That is the critical question, isn't it? And it's where our sources introduce this framework called Prout Samaj.
Prout Samaj. Tell us about that. What exactly is it, and how does it fit into this picture of technologically driven abundance?
So Prout Samaj isn't just an economic theory. It's presented as a comprehensive socioeconomic and political framework. It fundamentally challenges both conventional capitalism and state communism.
Okay, so it's a third way.
You could see it like that. It's rooted in a philosophy of universal humanism and, importantly, a new value system that's based on spirituality.
Spirituality, how does that connect to economics?
Here, spirituality seems to mean a focus on holistic well-being, physical, mental, and spiritual development for every individual. It emphasizes ethical principles, cooperation, and nurturing human potential beyond just material accumulation.
It's values-driven.
Very much so. And Prout Samaj offers a practical blueprint, a framework for how we can transition from our current scarcity-driven model to a system designed explicitly for universal well-being. And crucially, it aims to leverage these technological advancements, like ZMC that we've just been discussing.
So it connects the technology to the social structure.
Precisely. It's about nothing less than a fundamental paradigm shift in social thinking and action, as one source puts it, moving away from an economy based on extraction, competition, and artificial scarcity.
Towards one based on cooperation, meeting needs, and embracing abundance.
Exactly. It really gets to the heart of how we can integrate these incredible technological possibilities into a society that's truly equitable, sustainable, and allows everyone to flourish.
That sounds incredibly ambitious, almost utopian again.
So what would this proudest vision look like in practical terms? Let's take something really fundamental like universal education. How would that work? Okay, education is a great example. Under the Prout framework, education is considered a fundamental human right. Absolutely non-negotiable. It's not a commodity to be bought and sold in a market.
Not like higher education often is today.
Exactly. Prout guarantees access to universal, high-quality education for everyone, right from birth, alongside healthcare. The goal is to ensure a truly level playing field.
A level playing field.
And it champions this ancient Sanskrit proverb, savidya vimuktai.
Which means?
Roughly, that which liberates is knowledge, or education is that which liberates. In the Prout framework, education is designed to enable the fullest possible human expression, physical, psychic, and spiritual potential for every single individual.
Without discrimination.
Absolutely, without any discrimination based on their background, their wealth, their location, anything. It's about unlocking potential.
Which is a pretty stark contrast to many current systems, isn't it?
It really is. Our sources actually highlight this contrast, pointing to countries like India, for example, spending a relatively low percentage of GDP on education. I think it was 3.37%, which was actually down from 4.5% back in 2000.
And how does that compare globally?
Well, the source notes most developed countries, the OECD average, spend between 4% and 6%. And this underfunding, Prout argues, has severe consequences.
Like what?
It leads to the commoditization of education, lower standards, often neglects vital areas like the humanities.
Which are crucial for critical thinking and citizenship.
Exactly. It affects the cultivation of exemplary citizenship, making societies more vulnerable to dogma and manipulation. Another source mentions Pakistan, where underfunding public education has historically driven students towards fundamentalist madrasas with significant societal consequences.
So the current system, in many places, is actually creating problems by treating education as scarce or under-resourced.
That's the argument. But the technology, the ZMC potential we talked about, is already here to make universal quality education a reality within a Proutist framework.
How does ZMC enable that?
Through the digitization of knowledge resources, textbooks, lectures, libraries, simulations, combined with universal, affordable internet connectivity. This enables access to a truly world-class education for all.
So that student in a remote village
Can have access to the very best digital classroom experience imaginable, taught by renowned professors from anywhere in the world, delivered seamlessly on a cheap handheld device, potentially at zero marginal cost per student.
That's a powerful vision.
It is. And Prout activists, as described in the sources, would actively work to unlock this potential. Their role would be to materialize this dream of universal high-quality education for everyone, making sure it's available in both their mother tongue and key world languages to foster global understanding.
So it's not just about accessing information.
No, it's much deeper. It's about fostering critical thinking, creativity, ethical awareness, a global perspective empowering every single individual to achieve their fullest potential and genuinely embodying that idea. Savidya vimuktai, the liberation that comes through knowledge.
That's incredibly powerful. Okay, what about something equally vital, like food sovereignty? You said earlier we produce enough food, but access is the issue. How does Prout address ensuring everyone has consistent access to healthy, nutritious food, regardless of where they live or the local climate?
Right. This builds on the idea of existing abundance, but adds a layer of technological enablement and cooperative structure. Prout argues that with the exponential innovations in science and tech, we can make local food production not just feasible, but economic for any population, anywhere.
Irrespective of, say, deserts or harsh climates?
Irrespective of adverse or favorable geophysical factors, yes. It's about creating climate-neutral farming and food production systems.
Climate-neutral farming? How?
It relies on three interconnected factors, according to the sources. First, remember, the near-zero marginal cost energy from renewables.
Solar, wind, tidal, hydrothermal.
That abundant, cheap energy becomes the key enabler. It can power desalination plants to create fresh water for irrigation in arid regions. It can maintain precise, controlled climate conditions inside multi-tiered greenhouses, essentially creating ideal growing conditions anywhere.
So energy unlocks water and climate control. What's second?
Second is the farming technology itself.
Yeah.
Things like vertical farming, hydroponics growing without soil, advanced AI managing crop cycles, maybe even nanorobots for precise weeding or nutrient delivery, plus sophisticated automation.
And this happens where?
Inside those multi-tiered climate-neutral greenhouses. This combination makes crop production incredibly efficient, drastically reducing the need for extensive land, water, pesticides, and also minimizing manual labor and agricultural drudgery.
Okay, energy, tech. What's the third factor?
The third factor is a social and economic one, a rapidly growing global movement towards hyper-local food production for local consumption.
The farm-to-table idea, but maybe scaled up.
Kind of, yeah. It's driven by concerns over the carbon footprint of long-distance food transport, the desire for fresher, healthier food, and building a truly circular and symbiotic local economy where waste is minimized, nutrients are recycled, and resources are used cooperatively.
So how does Prout structure this?
Through what the sources call the Prout agrarian revolution of cooperatives. The idea is that decentralized, community-owned agricultural cooperatives empowered by these technologies can free humanity from both malnutrition and hunger.
And help the environment at the same time.
Yes, by shifting away from destructive industrial agriculture and restoring threatened ecosystems. The sources are clear. The solutions are available.
So what's missing?
What's truly needed, they argue, is the political will to establish governance of Samaj's socio-economic units by the Prout-informed leadership. Leadership that can design and implement these cooperative food production and distribution systems effectively.
So it's a governance challenge as much as a technical one.
Absolutely. Technology provides the means, but the social and political structure is needed to ensure it serves universal well-being.
Okay, and transportation and communication. We touched on how ZMC is revolutionizing those. Does Prout add anything specific there?
It essentially embraces and integrates those ZMC-driven revolutions. The multiple waves navigation, like Google Maps, making direction free, ride-hailing sharing, like Uber changing vehicle use, self-driving tech like Waymo automating movement.
All riding on the internet and cheap renewable energy.
Exactly. Combined with that exponential increase in battery storage capacity, Prout sees this combination fundamentally rendering transport to near zero cost per trip eventually.
Which means?
Imagine a world where commuting stress is gone, where everyone, regardless of age or ability, has effortless access to work, education, healthcare, social connection. And the environmental impact of transport is drastically slashed. Prout sees this as foundational for a connected, equitable society.
And communications.
Well, as the source says, the revolution there in the last 2 decades has made geography history. Handheld smartphones connect humanity at an unprecedented pace. Costs are plummeting.
And those projects for free global internet.
Yeah, projects involving massive satellite constellations aiming to offer free or ultra-low-cost internet connectivity and Wi-Fi to virtually every corner of the globe. Prout sees this ubiquitous near-zero cost communication as vital for education, coordination, and building global solidarity.
Okay, let's talk healthcare again. This is such a critical area, and often where costs are a huge barrier, leading to so much preventable suffering and death. How would a Prout society approach universal healthcare using these advanced technologies?
Right. The Proutist vision for healthcare is maybe one of the most radical shifts described. It moves away from our current model, which is largely reactive. You get sick, then you seek treatment.
Often when it's already serious or expensive.
Exactly. Prout envisions a shift to a truly predictive model of healthcare.
Predictive? How does that work?
It would be based on comprehensive, secure, and consented genome information of all members within a Samaj, a socioeconomic unit. This data would be available, anonymized where appropriate, in a secure cloud-based bank accessible to healthcare providers and researchers working for public good.
Okay, so genetic data is key. What else?
Imagine a future with unobtrusive, privacy-protected sensors, maybe tiny, non-invasive embedded chips, or advanced wearable tech like smartwatches, but far more sophisticated, seamlessly monitoring individual health markers in real time.
Continuously.
Continuously, yes. Feeding anonymized, consented data into a secure online health surveillance system. This system wouldn't be for spying. It would work alongside advanced digital assistants AI, all collaborating to deliver personalized, universal healthcare at potentially near zero marginal cost for the monitoring and analysis part.
That sounds very sci-fi. Is the tech even close?
Well, consider the cost of individual whole genome sequencing. That's foundational to this predictive model. Our sources point out that the cost crashed dramatically from something like the equivalent of over $1 million back in 2001 to just a few $100s. The source mentions ours $15,000, which is around $200 USD per 2020. And it's projected, with increasing volumes and tech refinement, to hit near zero marginal cost very soon.
Wow, that's an incredible cost reduction.
It really is. So a Prout society, the sources say, will ensure whole genome sequencing of all, and critically, ensure that experts have ethical, regulated access to this data to monitor health indicators proactively.
To deliver predictive healthcare.
Exactly. To prevent illness before it even manifests. Imagine never having to experience the debilitating onset of a major chronic disease like type 2 diabetes or certain cancers because your health system proactively identified the risk years in advance and guided you through preventative measures.
Or catching something very early for immediate targeted intervention.
Precisely. The sources emphasize this isn't about surveillance in a negative sense. It's about empowerment through data, enabling unprecedented levels of health, longevity, and well-being for absolutely everyone.
Okay, so when you bring all these different proudest visions together, universal education, food sovereignty, near zero cost transport and comms, predictive healthcare, what does this broader picture of universal access to basic necessities truly look like in an abundant Prout Samaj?
It paints a picture of a radically different, much more secure and equitable society. The data-rich ecosystem we're building, largely driven by ZMC, has already profoundly transformed how we learn, socialize, work, entertain ourselves, mostly through affordable smartphones operating at near marginal cost, right?
Yeah, that's undeniable.
Prout sees that same three-step process. Digitize, demonetize, democratize, expanding beyond the virtual space. It's going to increasingly drive physical devices in every sector imaginable.
Like self-driving cars, the robotic surgery you mentioned.
Exactly. Self-driving cars, automated logistics, advanced manufacturing tools, even complex robotic surgical devices. This relentless technological push brings us ever closer, Prout argues, to the practical goal of guaranteeing the minimum necessities of life and ensuring the welfare of all members of society.
And the energy cost factor.
That's seen as being fundamentally solved. As we discussed, distributed, local generation of energy at near zero cost, from renewables, solar, wind, thermal, tides, effectively neutralizes one of the biggest traditional input costs for almost all production.
So, with the technology and energy becoming abundant and cheap, what's the call to action?
The sources urge Prout activists, and by extension anyone who shares this vision, to actively challenge the status quo, to challenge the underuse, abuse, and deliberate disuse of available resources under greed-driven capitalism.
To point out the manufactured scarcity.
Precisely. The core message here is deeply optimistic, almost defiant. Another world is possible, a world built on a zero marginal cost economy, enabling genuine self-reliance in local production and distribution.
Of what specifically?
Of the guaranteed minimum necessities of life to all the members of the society. Things like food, clothing, shelter, education, healthcare.
And how is the distribution ensured?
Through the redesign of the economy, primarily using cooperatives. Prout emphasizes cooperative ownership and management to secure the equitable and rational distribution of these essential minimum requirements for the era we live in.
And it's not static.
No, absolutely not. Crucially, the framework aims to progressively upgrade that universal basic basket of essential goods and services as technology advances and our collective understanding of well-being evolves.
So it means a society where ideally no one is left behind.
That's the goal. Everyone has a solid foundation, not just for survival, but for a dignified, secure, and fulfilling life, freeing up human potential for higher pursuits.
Okay, this is a lot to take in. It's a fundamentally different way of looking at the world. So if scarcity is ultimately a choice, as these sources argue, and if technology is genuinely giving us tools for unprecedented abundance, how do we fundamentally rethink the very purpose of economics itself? What does this mean for our ingrained ideas about markets, growth, GDP?
This is really where the profound philosophical shift has to happen, isn't it? We need to go right back to basics. The traditional role of the market, as we've understood it, has been primarily to ration resources through the price mechanism.
Right. If something's scarce, its price goes up, fewer people can afford it. That's rationing.
Exactly. But if resources, especially information, energy, and increasingly production capacity, aren't inherently scarce anymore, or don't need to be, then the fundamental question shifts entirely.
It moves from
how do we ration limited resources to how can we make essential goods and services available to everyone who needs them.
That's a completely different starting point.
Completely. The answer should no longer be about, well, how do we manufacture or maintain scarcity to keep profit margins high? It has to become, how do we collaboratively create the conditions, social, technical, political, where there's always going to be enough for all?
And sustainably, presumably.
Oh, absolutely crucial. This must always be done within the vital context of our planetary constraints. We have to respect the ecological limits of our home. Abundance doesn't mean infinite material consumption. It means meeting needs efficiently and sustainably.
So this isn't just a technical or mathematical problem.
No, the sources suggest it's not fundamentally a complex mathematical problem you solve with a new algorithm. It's a deeply philosophical one. It forces us to ask, what is the purpose of economics really?
And the answer, according to Prout and these ZMC thinkers,
their answer seems to be that its purpose should fundamentally be about ensuring everyone has a fair chance, a chance to live a dignified, secure, flourishing life.
Which critiques the current model pretty heavily.
It does, because the existing economic model, built on that assumption that we always want more than we can have and that resources are inherently limited, inevitably does two things. It encourages endless, unsustainable consumption.
Keep buying more stuff.
Right. And, crucially, it actively creates and maintains inequality. It does this while constantly pretending that markets are these perfectly efficient mechanisms for distribution.
When clearly, they often aren't.
When very clearly, as the sources argue, they aren't. They leave billions wanting for basic necessities, while others accumulate and consume far, far more than they could ever possibly need or use, all justified by this flawed foundational premise of inherent scarcity.
Okay. So if we strip away that flawed premise, if we accept the potential for abundance, what's the practical alternative to the current system? Who steps in to ensure this emerging abundance is actually distributed equitably and sustainably? It sounds like markets alone won't do it.
Markets driven solely by profit maximization almost certainly won't, according to this view. The alternative structure, as presented in our sources, particularly through the Prout lens, is to empower governments and, very importantly, cooperative structures to consciously match resources to genuine human need.
So more state involvement, more community control. Does that mean private companies disappear?
Not necessarily disappear, no. The sources suggest private companies absolutely can and probably should still have a role. There's still room for innovation, for providing specific goods and services, but
There's a but.
The but is crucial. Their core purpose needs to shift, or at least be balanced. It should be genuinely about meeting human need and contributing to the common good, operating within clear ethical and ecological boundaries set by society.
And access needs to be ensured.
Ultimately, yes. Society needs to ensure that access to the essential products and services they make, especially things fundamental to life and well-being, will be available to everyone. We simply cannot, the argument goes, continue to live in a world where some go without the basics when there is demonstrably more than enough potential to go around.
And how do governments or cooperatives achieve this? What tools do they use?
Governments in this vision have incredibly powerful tools already at their disposal. Things like money creation, taxation policies, regulation.
Tools that are currently often used differently.
Often used, critics would say, in ways that perpetuate scarcity and inequality. Think subsidies for fossil fuels, tax loopholes for the ultra-wealthy, deregulation that harms the environment. Prout suggests these same powers can be repurposed. They can be used proactively and intelligently to effectively deliver universal well-being.
So success wouldn't be measured by GDP anymore.
Exactly. Which often hides deep inequalities, ignores unpaid care work, and actively rewards environmental destruction.
Instead, success is.
Success should be defined by tangible outcomes, sustainable lives lived well, by the flourishing of every individual, the health of communities, the regeneration of ecosystems. That's the measure of a truly successful economy.
This is a profound shift. If we stop pretending that resources are scarce, if we actually dismantle this manufactured illusion we've lived under for so long, our sources argue we might just save the world. For ourselves, for our children, for all generations to come. That's not just presented as a hopeful thought, is it?
No, it's presented as an entirely feasible, maybe even necessary path forward, given the converging crises we face.
And the ultimate potential payoff.
It truly is potentially transformative. This could deliver what one of our sources vividly describes as an economic nirvana.
Economic nirvana, what does that mean in practice?
Happiness. Genuine, widespread human happiness, profound well-being for all. Imagine it seriously for a moment. It would actually be possible for everybody on this planet to have enough.
Enough food, shelter, healthcare, education.
Enough to be healthy, to be educated, to be housed, to be secure. Enough to live without the constant, grinding fear of economic collapse hanging over them. To live without the debilitating stress of constantly chasing survival, paycheck to paycheck. To live without the gnawing anxiety of lacking basic necessities for themselves or their families.
These are the things that really damage well-being.
They systematically destroy our well-being. They fuel mental health crises, societal unrest, conflict. But the sources argue we haven't collectively chosen the alternative option yet.
The option of abundance.
Yes. The fundamental, truly provocative argument underpinning all of this is that scarcity, in its current pervasive form, is itself a choice. It's a product of our systems, our priorities, our mindset.
And if we made a different choice?
That if we collectively made the choice for sustainability, for cooperation, for prioritizing universal access and well-being, we might just unlock a future where happiness and security are not scarce privileges for a few, but fundamental rights enjoyed by all.
Wow, okay. And that feels like a powerful place to pause and reflect as we bring this deep dive to a close. We've journeyed quite a distance today, haven't we?
We certainly have.
We started by questioning that bedrock economic assumption, the supposed inevitability of scarcity. We explored the counter-argument from our sources, the startling reality of existing abundance in many key areas, and abundance being supercharged by the incredible engine of the zero marginal cost economy and the interconnectedness of the Internet of Things.
Right, moving from the lie of scarcity to the potential of abundance.
And then we landed on the visionary framework of Prout Samaj, not just a critique, but a practical blueprint, a potential roadmap for structuring society to actually deliver universal well-being in this emerging age. It's a truly transformative vision of what could be possible.
Absolutely. And if there's one core takeaway from synthesizing all these sources, I think it's this. It's profoundly empowering. The message is that the solutions, by and large, already exist. The technology is here or rapidly developing.
The potential is real.
The potential for a world where everyone has their basic needs met, a world of genuine security and opportunity, freed from manufactured scarcity. It's not some distant, fuzzy dream. It's presented as a tangible, achievable future.
But it requires a choice.
It requires a fundamental shift. A shift in our collective thinking, in our values, in our political and economic structures, moving away from a mindset locked into limitation and zero-sum competition.
Towards one embracing possibility, cooperation, and shared flourishing.
Exactly. The potential is there, but realizing it depends on the choices we make, individually and collectively.
So, as you, our listener, go about your day after hearing all this, maybe consider this question. What small action can you take, starting today, to challenge that ingrained assumption of scarcity? Maybe in your own life, maybe in your community.
How could you foster more sharing, more cooperation, more focus on sufficiency and well-being instead of just endless accumulation?
And how might even small shifts like that ripple outwards, contributing, even in a tiny way, towards building that more abundant, more equitable future for all? Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about.
Thank you so much for diving deep with us today into these fascinating and challenging ideas.
Thank you. It's been a really stimulating discussion.